Blog Talk Radio.
You gotta think outside the box. And today, I'm going to co-host Outside the Box with one Lee Townsend. Welcome back to the show, Lee.
Hey, thanks, Jerry. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Apparently, you and Jeff are in the midst of a giant storm, and Jeff got the worst of it. His power's out. He's going to try to make it a little bit later, but for now, no go. What's going on there, Lee? You holding up the fort?
Yeah, we're holding it down pretty good. I will hold down the. I'll hold down things on this end for as long as our power holds out as well. We're getting a severe deluge in central Maryland today, all day long. It's not particularly hard. It's just been steady all day. And as I said earlier, we're thinking of putting some rice paddies around the house instead of a vegetable garden this year. So it's that's a wonderful idea.
Now, as we've learned here, when I host the show, my power goes out, too, for Skype. For some reason, it just shuts off. So you look forward to that at some point during the next 2 hours.
Oh, this will be exciting.
Well.
Yeah, exciting. Considering I have no control over the show whatsoever anyway.
Yeah, put out that disclaimer. Blame it all on me. What have you been up to in life? You haven't been here. You've been away. You've been doing what things?
I apologize for my absence, and I've dearly wanted to be here, but I've been kind of on a whirlwind nationwide tour for the last month or so, and finally things have landed, and all the things are in the right place now. So I should be around for a while now. I think all the out of town stuff that I've needed to do, and this is for a day job, It's not chasing flying saucers around the countryside like I used to do back in the day. But
didn't pay the bills quite as well as you thought it would back then, did it?
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's good to land and sleep in my own bed whenever I can seem to make it in there off the couch anyway. So it's great to be back, and I'm happy to join with you. And I'm sorry to miss Jeff. I spoke with him earlier this week.
Is that the end?
No.
End of sentence.
No,
I spoke with him earlier this week. Okay. Well, me too.
I got a little distracted by the message board there. Just for a second, I can.
No, don't pay any attention to them. They babble on and on. Did you get a chance to listen to this week's show by any chance?
As a matter of fact, I did. I listened to actually not the entire show, but probably the first 2/3 of it, and I missed the end. But I had already discussed. I know Jeff went into his meditation experience, and we had discussed that earlier this week. So I'm briefed on it anyway. Quite interesting.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about any of that. Here's what I want to know: didn't that guy have a sexy voice?
I think he does. Yeah, it's really, really good. Was he?
I can't really say that with
that
Jeff around, but guys like you and me, we understand. It's not gay to say he's sexy, and it's okay if it is gay. Hello?
It was a pleasant, mellifluous voice.
Very good. Yeah, no, I thought that was a riveting story, and he was a great orator, and God bless the performer background, It came in handy there.
That was some pretty curious events, and it kind of reminded me of my little fog bank excursion. It was my fog bank excursion, of course, was nowhere near as detailed, nor really as strange as his was, but it kind of took me right back there again. Very interesting.
What was yours?
When I was, after an evening of performing at the beach, I was on my way home. It's about a 150-mile drive. And I took the shortcut up through Delaware to come back into the eastern shore of Maryland. And probably about a mile before the Maryland state line, I encountered a very thick, very dense fog bank, and some sort of bird or something flew up in front of my windshield, and this thing was huge. It had probably, of course, I was driving a Geo Metro at the time, but the wingspan was pretty much covered the whole width of the car almost, and it startled me, of course. And I was thinking maybe it was a turkey or something like that. So naturally, as thick as, it was about the thickest fog I've ever seen, and I drove through that very slowly, very gingerly. The road, fortunately, was straight, and it continued on for a couple of miles. And right before I crossed over into Maryland, and right before I exited the fog bank, another bird flew up in front of my windshield and up over the car, and then I was out in the clear. Very strange. It was like bookend birds or something,
But nothing like 100 or 100 plus deer staring at you.
No, there was none of that kind of deer thing. Did anybody ever do any research into that, into the symbology of the deer?
Yes.
And?
I don't know. I'm lying. I have no idea. I quickly tried to look it up, and I didn't see anything, but, it was really quick. By the way, Bad Example says, perhaps you should say instead that he has charisma instead of that he's sexy. Bad Example telling me that I'm using a bad example. Well, no, I think he actually has a sexy voice because he's got that southern accent, and it's like the only southern accent that's not annoying and kind of dumb.
Let's just say it how it is. It's just not a Maryland affectation.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, something like that. No, I had a very good, and it was so clear. Was that a Skype call that you guys recorded?
Yes.
Remarkable clarity. Indeed.
And right now someone is showering near me. I don't know if you can hear that, but just to let you know, that's what the tinkle noise is. Has nothing to do with the sexy voice conversation.
I thought that was your daily rain.
Yes. We have a call here. Maybe I should take it and see if this is our caller.
Let it rip.
Caller, is this you, or is this a listener listening and I just picked up by accident?
I'm a listener listening.
No.
Awesome.
All right. Never mind.
Welcome.
Every time, Lee, why do you do this to us, Blog Talk? Why? Well, someone might be calling in, and someone else might be calling in. So that makes two might be calling ins.
Two might be.
But I guess what I want to talk about, unless you got anything under your belt here, Lee, anything?
No, nothing in particular. Go ahead.
All right. This is something I was going to save because Jeff and I still haven't recorded the after chat to next week's show, which we taped with Tiokasin the other night.
You did? Awesome.
Yeah. So we're going to have a nice partnership. Hey, welcome to the family, Tiokasin. He's going to be on in probably, in a bunch of different capacities, interviewing with us, coming on solo, roundtable discussions, and so forth. It's going to be interesting.
Will he be doing the live show?
I don't know. The thing is, Tiokasin has a show on NPR, I believe, right? I think it's on NPR in New York.
Okay.
So he's got like a real radio show schedule. Plus, he plays with his group Ghost Horse. So I don't know. I doubt he's going to have time to give us all of that time. I think it'll just be like once or twice a month. And maybe he's always welcome if he wants to. If he's listening right now, feel free to call in. So I think you're going to find this week's show pretty riveting. And it got me to thinking, some of the stuff that he talked about got me to thinking about this new angle on disclosure, which is this, that when we talk about we want disclosure, it's usually a bunch of white guys pounding their fists demanding something of the government, right?
Right.
Or it's media-savvy people trying to sort of, like NARCAP, sort of trying to like change the lingo of ufology to not sound like ufology so they can sort of slip in under the radar and somehow find out a fact or two. That's just my take on it. But
scientific sounding like.
But here's the thing. Here's the new question for me. Now, as everyone out there familiar with moi knows, I am fond of saying you've got to know what you are. You've got to know what a human being is before you can ever ask what the other is. Well, maybe there's another part of that, which is maybe we don't even speak the right language, because when you don't know, when you're not in tune with the earth, let's say, which is you, of which you are an extension, right?
Right.
Then you lose sight of the natural language that comes from that type of living or that type of communicating. We've given it up, right, for this sort of bunch of rational languages that are hierarchical and domination and blah, blah, blah. I'm sure you'll hear Tiokasin talking all about this. Whereas indigenous thought is not that. And their communication, therefore, is not that. And so, for example, he would say that even to talk to people in the green movement or any of these sort of altruistic left-wing, environmental movements where they talk about sharing, sharing the earth, sharing of this, sharing of that the Lakota don't even have a word for sharing. They don't think in those terms. It's giving. And the reason that it's giving is because Mother Earth is always giving to us. And so it's up to us to give back. Therefore, giving, not sharing. And just that one little thing is a huge twist. Now, if there are beings that are from, I don't know, another planet, from this planet, from another dimension, from whatever, who are intimately related to us in some way, or perhaps intimately related to their own planet in the way that indigenous people are related to this one, in the way we all should be, then could they not speak to the person pounding his fist on the table going, I demand disclosure? That whole mindset is a wrong mindset. That mindset is just in the same way that we don't know ourselves. It's that same sort of thing. It's like, well, if you don't know what you are and you think that this ego center is the thing that an alien or an other should be conversing with, if you're wrong about what you are, then you're wrong about that conversation being able to happen. And so if we extend that back to indigenous folks, what if, I'm just putting this out there as a what if has happened, what if it's true? What if what Tiokasin says about the Lakota is true? That they've been in our position. They've already done this. They've made the technological, arrogant sort of mistakes that we've made thousands of years ago. And so when Columbus landed and stamped out indigenous people, he thought he was stamping out primitives, but he didn't realize that the Europeans were the primitives, that actually the indigenous thing is kind of a quote-unquote enlightenment or post having gone through that nonsense and gotten back to what's real experience. So ironically, little brother stamped out big brother and thought that big brother was retarded. But no, that's actually you're retarded. And so what he also stamped out, therefore, is this communication with Mother Earth as an extension of Mother Earth. And so if there is something to disclose about an alien who has either gone through that type of thing on their own planet and understand this, or shares this planet with us in some way, or shares our DNA heritage in some way, then does it make sense that they're actually in conversation with indigenous people in a way that we aren't? And so disclosure would actually come from indigenous people, but it wouldn't come to us, if that makes sense. Like, we have to meet them. We have to go back to adopting that language to understand the conversation.
It makes total perfect sense. And just as soon as when I thought that, you brought up the point about having a different angle or a different take on the whole disclosure thing, I'm like, ooh, how is that even possible? But this makes total sense. If you look at it even from a contextual basis. In fact, strangely enough, I just had a conversation about that, I think just yesterday, as far as, talking about the Native American cultures and how more spiritually advanced that they are. Actually, this kind of grew out of when I was cutting my grass yesterday. I found someone had put about a 2-foot-long fish in the back of my backyard that they had just, they caught the fish and they cut the fillet out of the fish and then they threw the rest, thank you very much, into my backyard. And I was cutting the grass and I smelled some kind of carrion going on in there. And I saw that, and it brought to mind the fact that we are so wasteful with the natural things that we extract out of it, and it took me right back to the Native American cultures who used, they were grateful for what they received from nature, and they used every bit of it that they possibly could. So none of that fish would have gone to waste had it been done by other people. So really, you're kind of looking at things from I don't know if it's so much more. It's definitely less of a Western mindset, and it's probably more contextually based, and definitely more harmonious with nature and natural forces, that sort of thing. And speaking to your point also about the green movement, you're right. They don't. The whole lexicon is not even really there, and it really is contextually based. So I think that there's a lot of validity to that point. I mean, why not?
Well, it's interesting just in talking to him and in thinking about all of the sort of backwards way that we've been thinking about indigenous folks, is, for instance, prophecy. Now, as he's explained it, prophecy for the Lakota and for the Hopi, and let's put the extension out there, is you're getting a signpost that's saying, okay, here's where you are, here's where you're headed. You don't have to go that way. You have a choice.
Right.
We think of prophecy as like Nostradamus, like, oh, this is what's going to happen. And so when we look at the word prophecy, you've got people who believe in prophecy, and you've got people, this isn't, westernized people, you've got people who believe in prophecy and people who say, oh, it's just nonsense. You can't predict the future and all of that. But that, neither of those apply to what Native Americans mean by prophecy, and yet we apply it to that. So our thinking about how backwards these people are for the last, however many hundreds of years is actually because we're backwards in our thinking about the words that we're applying to them. It's not the same. It's not the same definitions. And we, for some reason, didn't know that. I find that interesting. So I feel like we're going to unravel some things in the coming weeks. And now Tiokasin says it's possible to just by changing the language that we use to actually get back to existing from the heart as opposed to from the brain. Because this is something that came up in our conversation. Is it even possible just to change, through use of language? And he says it is. So we're going to try this. We're going to try this on the show, and hopefully people will come with us on the journey and see what changes with it, Because, I've talked about it here a little bit on this show since moving to Hawaii and seeing how there is no such thing as paranormal here. It's all normal. That's how people think about it. That's how the Lakota think about it. Everything is normal. It's all just a matter of, if you can't see and you walk around a room, you're bound to hit a thorny cactus. You're bound to bump into the table. And it's just getting used to the invisible things in the room until you can see. And then, but you can't do that if you don't speak the language. If you speak the language I speak, you can't do it. And we always want to bring things to ourselves, right? This is the ego sense of it. You want to be the center of everything, and you want everything to conform to you. But what if you have to give up something of yourself to see the broader reality around you? What happens? And what happens when this stuff doesn't look paranormal? Because to say paranormal is to imply a division between you as normal and this thing, right? And so this thing is necessarily going to be fearful or something to, investigate, not just for the 3-year-old sense of adventure of it, like, oh my God, wow, amazing, but with suspicion. And what happens when you don't have suspicion? Because we've sort of talked about on this show whatever your attitude is sort of what gets reflected back to you. So how do we drop the attitude? Is that what has to happen, where we just accept the normalcy of the situation? Does that change everything?
And even a part of that, too, is, we've had numerous discussions over the concept of fear. And that speaks directly to that, too, really. You say there's no paranormal, there's no supernatural, there's only natural that we haven't yet identified or don't have the lexicon for in our culture. And that does not, and you're right, it's very haughty to dismiss any other cultures who may have, something really important to say about it, and probably the most correct point as far as figuring all this stuff out. Yeah. Now the question to me is, why would Tiokasin want to come on and talk about all this stuff now? And I guess we'll just have to. Well, you have some. You have for now, sure. It would be great if he would agree to come on at least for one or two of the live shows, so you could have, give an opportunity for the listeners to actually address questions or points directly. That would really be strong. I also think you mentioned something about some of the local shamans there in Hawaii. Maybe having them involved. I don't know. One of the things that we talked about was maybe doing a roundtable with kahunas and medicine men or elders or something along those lines. But who knows? All of this is wide open. We don't know what's going to actually come to fruition. Have you been in touch? Have you been in touch with any of the kahunas? No. There? No. This would all have to be through Tiokasin. Awesome. Yeah, because he knows people here. They've got like the whole Justice League system. All of the native cultures of the earth actually. See, this is my suspicion, is that they all know each other. It's like the biggest joke on the planet is our sense of entitlement. It's like they all know each other. They all know that we're just going through a very long phase that looks as though we're destroying them, but in fact, at the end of it, our light is going to go out, and we're going to have to meld back into the earth, These daggone kids. These kids. Yeah, these upstarts. They don't know. That's that. If anyone has a thought about what I just said, or if it doesn't make any sense, I'm thinking about
writing it up so that it's a little less off the top of my head as it was here tonight for my website, jayvay.com. That's JAYVAY.com. Yes. Probably this week I'll do that.
Oh,
and
that'd
then
be awesome. You're good
people
reading.
can tell me
I think you stated the point actually quite well.
Oh, thanks.
So just transcribe what you said, and you're done.
Very nice. Now, Hermitage.
Nice.
Hermitage, if you are out there and you would like to call in, feel free to call in at any time. He had said that he might call in tonight. So one assumes he has a story. You know, like Toilet Elf. Nothing's ever going to top Toilet Elf, so probably not like Toilet Elf.
No, I think that gets the award for the year. Yeah.
What else?
Elsewhere.
I don't actually have anything to talk about is the problem, which is why, Jeff and I were like, should we go our separate ways with the show here or continue on? So,
I say
unless you want like an hour of dead air, feel free to fill it.
Yeah, fill it. Call in. What's that number again, Jer?
That number again is 323-580-5757. Get your pens ready, everybody. 323-580-5757. Yes.
Yes. So more on this week's show.
This
Can we
week's
talk
show.
about that?
What do you want to go for it? What do you got on that?
Well, I mean, it with the similarities to my own experience with the fog bank, I found that highly interesting, and I'd like to get into it. I hope Jeff is able to join us later on, because I would like to hear maybe some details that he left out about his meditation experience that may not have transpired during our call the other night when he filled me in on it.
What details were missing?
Well, I don't know. He he told me that he did this meditation, and he sat across from an Asian-looking gentleman. However, he was a darker-skinned Asian person who was sitting across from him, and that put me in mind right away of Kurt Schraubman. But this fellow that he was across from had a bowl of gems, or like reddish gems, and he was swirling them in a counterclockwise fashion, and Jeff went and took the bowl from him, and then he felt that the bowl itself was moving under its own accord. And let's see, what else did he say? That I think that at that point that startled him so much it kind of zapped him back into the here and now. And when he did that, his hands were in that position, and they were moving of their own volition as well. And then I think that gradually faded away. And that's about the gist of what I got through our brief discussion.
That's about it.
Oh, that was it. Okay.
That was pretty much it. I mean, somebody had asked on the message board whether he, asked something about the water in the bowl. And I don't remember him saying that these gems were swishing in water. I think they were just gems in a bowl. And I don't think he was startled awake. I think he just, awake, to his eyes opening, because I think he said he was awake the whole time. I don't think he was startled. I think he just opened his eyes to see what would happen if he opened his eyes, to see what was in the room.
Oh, okay.
And that's when he saw that his hands were, in fact, doing the motions of the bowl. It's interesting, because when he told me about it, he was saying, it sounds a lot like what my shtick with the movements and stuff, except I've never sat across from anyone or anything like that in my mind's eye. I mean, I had a period of time of seeing stuff when I'd close my eyes, things like pyramids or another eye staring back at me, or alien faces, or what looked like Indian from India faces.
Right.
And then there was a period of time where somehow I was involved with some sort of, I don't know, Asian people of some sort. But nothing the way that he's describing it. I mean, that was all just sort of there as almost like visual noise or something.
Yeah, it was quite detailed, indeed. And I related to him, or reiterated to him, something that that occurred to me during a guided meditation exercise where I was in a tunnel, and not like your typical like cruising through a tunnel heading toward the light, nothing like that. It was an actual block, like granite block tunnel that I was coming up out of, and I could see daylight, but it was real daylight. It wasn't this figurative, light. It was a real hard, tangible thing. And maybe the word startled is a bit too strong. It's the realness of it struck me so much that it kind of zapped me out of the moment. I had a similar, occurrence. I related that to him when he told me of his situation there. So I mean, do we go someplace else? It kind of begs the question. Was this internally generated, or was he in fact in, dare I say it, like an alternate universe or another place where there was this reality that was going on?
Well, here's some food for thought along those lines.
Yeah.
Someone that I wanted to call in tonight, somebody actually emailed me on Facebook to say, a listener who was saying, anytime Jeff and I talk about stopping the show, it sounds like an end of an era sort of thing, and it sort of hits them in the gut, and, please don't go, that sort of thing. Very nice email, and also giving me a suggestion for a guest. But one of the things that he mentioned was how brave it was of us to do the shroom trip, because who the hell does that? Whoever actually does the experiment themselves. And then he started talking about his own experiences, one of which was seeing mantis-like beings at a control deck, the whole alien thing, the abduction thing. He went through that and was pulled apart and reconjoined. And I wanted him to come on and talk about this because he said something, or he wrote something that I've never heard before, which is at some point during that experience, he realized it's him doing it. It's him pulling himself apart and putting himself back together. It's all him. And I feel like, man, it's fun. Ironically, he wrote to give me the name of a guest, and I'm like, will you come on? Yeah,
right.
But this was right before we went on the air, so he might not have even read that by the time we got here. But is that something that you've heard before? Is that something that anyone else out there has heard before, that there's a sense at some point during those trips that it's you? Because that's a fucking huge clue. To all of this stuff.
And the thing with the bowl and the gems in there, that is so rife with symbolism. It really is, and just the swirling motion of that, and it could be construed that was kind of Jeff's being, that there's all these gems, or his brain actually speaking to him. That this was a suggestion of a friend who I related the scenario to. And the suggestion was that this was probably the things that are swirling around in his brain, and it's manifested itself in a reality of his, because it certainly didn't happen to me. My reality was a different situation, and this fellow you just talked about right now, the praying mantis beings, that was another personal reality.
Well, here's something else Tiokasin says that you'll hear on next week's show that I think is something I've never heard before, and I find to be an amazing insight. He talks about, we talked about the white buffalo calf woman, and he said what preceded the white buffalo calf woman 2,300 years ago, coming to them, was the Watcher, which is this tall, very tall light being, or I think he said light being, maybe I'm wrong, but very tall being called the Watcher. And as of 15 to 20 years ago, people have been seeing the Watcher again on reservations. There have been police calls from as far as 200 miles away from each other, saying, I'm seeing this tall guy, I'm afraid, even though there's nothing menacing going on, any reports of this. So he's been around, and he's a harbinger of just saying, look, you're on the wrong path, you're screwing up here. That's sort of what he symbolizes. But when we think about something like the white buffalo calf woman or something like the Watcher, we think about our own religious stuff, right? You go, oh, well, that's a belief. That's either their myth, it's like a cultural creation myth, or it's akin to Jesus, Mary, that type of belief system, right? But here's the insight. Here's what he said that I have never heard before, and of course I haven't been paying attention, so maybe that's just it. But what he said was that the Watcher, and I think that we can say by extension the white buffalo calf woman, is basically a projection of or a creation of Mother Earth, the same way that we are. But this is a creation that is very specific to us and to the context in which he comes. So whether that means he's a sort of a holographic image or even an organism of sorts, it kind of reminds me of the fact that Jeff could crush a quote-unquote alien and it would just disintegrate. I wonder if the Watcher, the white buffalo calf woman, are they all made of that same stuff? Are they all coming from the greater consciousness of the planet to say, you're screwing up, or whatever it is that they say, whatever it is that they happen to mean. But to me, that's hugely insightful, because that's not a being from elsewhere. That's not a myth. That's very specifically the way that the Earth speaks to you through creation of a being, And
it's also kind of like a more benign type of Mothman, or if you take the whole Mothman concept and put it into a negative spin, that's a similar type thing as well. I think there maybe really there's a clue there. I think that there really may be something quite important to that as well.
I feel like we're at the ending of Lost. I feel like that's where Paratopia is now, where we're finally going to get some answers that may or may not be satisfying in the end, but at least they'll be answers. I
can't believe you said that. So you've set up next season now.
That's right. Good news, Lee. We have a call. Let's see who this is.
Awesome.
West of the Rockies. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, caller. Hello.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, Lee. How you guys doing tonight?
Good. It's actually Jeremy.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm Jeremy, and that's Lee, and Jeff is nowhere to be found.
Jeff is under the weather.
I'm sorry about that. I'm just a little bit nervous. First time caller, long time listener.
Oh, sure. What's your name?
My name is Steve. How's it going?
Good. What's up?
Well, I just figured I'd call in since you were saying you didn't really have much to talk about, and tell you about something a little weird that happened to me in my life and see what you think about it.
Cool.
Let it rip.
And don't be nervous.
Right,
don't be nervous.
Excited there. Let me delve right in. Well, when I was a little kid, I'd say between the ages of like 3 and 4, I lived with my grandparents out in the country. And I don't know, like a lot of little kids, I had this little place that was like a faux kitchen, kind of set up with like the little pegboard backing to it.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
It was generally kept down in the basement. Well, one day I wanted to play with it, and I had my grandpa bring it up into the living room for me. Well, I had him take it and turn it and face it towards the bookcase, so it was, kind of like set up in an odd position, but I had him do that because he had a bar in the basement, and he used to tend bar for the family, so I kind of wanted to, act like Grandpa and pretend like I was tending bar. So I was sitting there just playing in the room by myself and whatnot, and
Steve, does this end in alcoholism?
What was that?
Does this end in alcoholism for you?
Oh, no, actually, I very rarely drink. I'm a very cheap date.
Okay. Good to know.
The rest of my family, though, yeah, they're quite German and drink very much. But either way, my attention was kind of drawn towards the kitchen for some reason, and I looked towards the kitchen, and where the kitchen ends, in the dining room begins, there's kind of these Dutch doors. Well, in the doorway where the Dutch doors were open, I saw the outline of basically a little person, like a figure about as tall as I was at like 3 or 4. And the outline was the color blue, purple, and green, kind of in layers. Well, the little outline of the figure of the person came walking through the kitchen, through the living room, and up to where I was pretending to, tend bar or whatever. And I just kind of sat there and looking at it. And oddly enough, the first thing that pops into my head is, oh, well, this must be my imaginary friend, because I always heard on Sesame Street, like, you got an imaginary friend and things like that, and I always wondered, well, where's mine? I've never seen mine before. So
that's sad.
Oddly enough, I'm sorry, what was that?
I said that's sad.
Sad? Why is that sad?
I don't know. It's just like what Sesame Street is like making you feel left out because they're like, you should have an imaginary friend. You're like, where's mine?
Yeah, I don't know, but like that was the oddest thing. It's like that was the first thing that popped into my head. But then while I was thinking that, I heard my grandma call from the kitchen, like, "Hey, Steve, what you doing?" And I turn and I look to see my grandma, and I turn back, and the outline's gone. Just like poof, not here anymore. Well, now here's the weird thing. When I was about 19 or 20 years old, and I was living with a couple of buddies of mine in a duplex, one day I was walking up the stairs from the living room up to where my bedroom was, and I got this, like, not like a cold chill through my body, but like your hair stands on end and just like your senses are tweaked, like everything, you can hear a pin drop from like a mile away type thing. And I turn around and I look, and about 2 steps behind me on the stairs is that same outline again with its hand on the rail just like mine and just a couple steps behind me. Immediately, like, my heart started racing, and I'm like, whoa, this is happening again. What's going on here? So I turned around, took a couple deep breaths, finished walking up the stairs, and, like, turned around and looked, and it wasn't there anymore. Now, just to finish up, the third time it happened to me, I was about 24 or 25 years old, and I was actually finishing up work for the night at a nightclub I was working at with a buddy of mine. And it was me and him and one of the other security guards in the building. We're the only 3 people there, and the one guy was at the top of the building working his way towards the middle, and me and my buddy were in the basement working our way up towards him just to make sure there was nobody there. Well, since it was the end of the night and nobody else was in the building, my buddy found that it was safe for him to take a poop. So while he was sitting there doing what he needed to do, I was waiting for him between the men and the women's room. Well, in this basement area where we were, there was a stage right in front of me where I was sitting and waiting for my buddy. And I can't remember if I lit the cigarette before I saw it, but I remember smoking a cigarette, and quite, like, strongly, because I got that same weird feeling again, like when I was walking up the stairs, that tingly, like, all my senses tweaked, and I saw the outline of the figure come walking from stage left to center stage, walk forward through center stage, take, like, you know, like you're taking just a step off the stage quickly, hit the floor, walk about halfway up the floor, turn right, and walk the rest of the way across the room until it came to the bar, and it kind of just vanished again.
When that happened? Okay, when that happened, did you? Because that's the most extensive one, and you were an adult. Did you get the sense that it knew where you were in location to it? I mean, was it doing something for your benefit, or did you get the sense that it was just walking around and you just happened to see it, kind of thing?
I don't think it was just walking around and I happened to see it. Because it happened to me in two locations that were essentially my home. One when I was a little kid, one when I was like 19, 20, younger adult. The third time, though, when it happened somewhere else, that I didn't get. That I've never really been able to figure out. It's always kind of puzzled me.
I mean, I get that it's happened 3 times, and so obviously it's not just walking around and you're noticing it. I'm just wondering, since it's not communicating anything with you, does its body language, if you can call it that, if you didn't see it the other 2 times before and you saw it this time, would you think that something was communicating with you, or would you think that you just happened to walk in on something that was moving around the stage and leaving?
I would have thought that I had just walked in and happened to see something moving across the stage and leaving because, too, the building that I was working in at the time wasn't exactly a building that, you know, it's very well known for it being a spooky place to work.
And do you have any other paranormal, psychic, anything, a lot of synchronicities, a lot of deja vu, anything else in your life?
Yeah, I do, and it's kind of progressed ever since I was like a youngster. I mean, the thing that happened to me when I was really little that I just told you about wasn't the only odd thing that happened to me when I was young, and you know, I mean, it just kind of, you know, it's one of those things that just kind of sticks with you through your life, and whatever happens, happens. I mean, you never really know what kind of weird thing's going to happen, but...
Do you have other family members? Yeah, definitely. Do you have other family members who have had weird things happen to them?
My mom's pretty open-minded, so I talk to her about a lot of the things that happened to me, and she's shared a couple things with me that I found that are kind of odd, but not really too much with any other family members. They're, you know, just pretty much your average Joe type people, and they'll like talking, you know, casually, like, you know, yeah, Steve's into that weird stuff, you know, whatever.
So you're into that weird stuff. So did this set you on some sort of journey of trying to figure it out?
I didn't really try starting to, you know, figure it out until I got into, I would say, like 20, 21, like my early 20s. I mean, you know, I always had an interest in, like, odd stuff. Like, when I was a little kid and I was, like, 8 or 9, I was, you know, looking at books about the Loch Ness Monster and, you know, all your typical, like, Time Life books with, like, the UFOs on the covers and stuff like that, but never really, like, thinking that it applied to me in any sense or anything like that. But
then when you're 20 or 21... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering, the first time it happened to you, you didn't have any kind of, or at least you didn't, I don't believe you expressed any kind of creepiness, maybe a little odd, but nothing that would be in the range of a high alertness or even fear. Is that pretty accurate?
No, that's accurate. When I was a younger kid and it happened, the only thing is just like I had that, you know, extra alertness. Like I for some reason looked to my left and saw it, but there was no fear or anything. I just was like, oh,
right. Hey,
this is my imaginary friend. Finally, cool.
Yeah, right. And the second time it occurred, it was pretty much following you up the steps, and that kind of creeped you out a bit?
That creeped me out a bit, but at that time, the way I thought of it, I mean, Jeremy, you might, you know, relate to this a little bit. In my early 20s, I started reading a lot about Krishnamurti and, like, kind of some of that, like, energy stuff like chakras, and, started getting into that type of literature. And I almost thought that it could have been, like a projection of myself. Like, I don't know, like, fell into some state where, like, I just kind of, energy layers, colors, hell, I don't know how my senses work. I think that's what we're trying to figure out here. So who knows? I mean...
Yeah, but when you were... I'm just trying to figure out if you were 21, and then that's when you started really sort of diving into the literature and whatnot. And then at 24, you have your most spectacular sort of vision of this. Did that? What was your reaction after that? Did you then study more? Did you stop?
Well, no. At the time that happened, like, I was reading. I know, like literature-wise, I've been reading a lot about physics and things like that. But I mean, it was always like an ongoing process from that age onwards. It's not like it got like any more intense or any more put to the side. It was pretty much ingrained in my everyday life. I mean, always kind of like thinking and looking at life from a different angle because of different other odd events that have happened as I went along, and not just that one, but like the type of thing that I told you about that happened, seeing that stuff it's always one of those things that I've looked back and puzzled on because I've never really been able to figure out what it was and how it kind of applied to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting, how it applies to you. Yeah, I mean, because it sounds like it's just sort of there, even if it's following you up the stairs at one point, it could just be going up the stairs. There's no sense of it drastically trying to communicate with you in any sort of way. That to me is what is fascinating about it. What are some of the other experiences that you've had?
Oh, geez, you're asking me to, like, go into the grab bag here.
If you don't mind.
What's that?
I said, if you don't mind.
Oh, no, I don't mind at all. I'm actually feeling a little bit more comfortable here. So how about this? Like, what age would you like me to go for? That would help me be able to narrow it down for you.
Well, let's start. What is the earliest experience that you remember that was not, quote-unquote, normal?
Well, when, like I said, when I was living with my grandparents out in the country, it was kind of nice because around the 4th of July, you could sit in the backyard and see the fireworks over the cornfield, which was really cool. The whole family would get together, we'd sit out back and things like that, and we had a specific area of the yard where the tree line was cut kind of low on the property line so you could see the fireworks really well. Well, there was one year in particular I remember, and this I had to be between 4 and 5, not like 3 and 4, so I was a little bit older. This is after the little outline thing happened. We were outside watching the fireworks. I was sitting on Grandpa's lap. Everything was cool. Night started winding down. We were still sitting out there. Most of the family went back inside, and me and Grandpa were just sitting outside. So, it was really cool. And we were watching to see because, other neighbors were shooting off fireworks and things like that, so we were checking them out. And the next thing I remember is we started seeing, how they have, like, the big white flash fireworks where it's just like a loud bam and just like a big white flash. And well, I saw one of those, but it was blue, and we didn't hear any sound. And my grandpa caught it after I did because we saw another one. He was like, "Oh, Steve, look at that," because he didn't know I saw the first one. And I was already paying attention, and the one that he saw that he called my attention to was like a little bit closer. I was like, "Oh, that's really cool. Maybe there's some more fireworks going on." Well, these like blue flashes, there was like about 4 or 5 more of them, and as they were going off, they were getting closer and closer. And the next thing I remember, there was one that was really close up, that, you know, kind of made me, like, squint or whatever because it was really bright. And the next thing I remember is waking up in my grandpa's lap and being really cold. And he was, like, kind of asleep, too, I remember, because my grandma was calling from the porch saying, Fred, come on, it's time for you guys to come in. It's, you know, it's getting late. And my grandpa kind of, like, going, like, shaking awake, and like, okay, yeah, Marilyn, we're coming. You know, and him picking me up and just kind of slinging me over his shoulder and going back to the house.
It kind of reminds me, in a way, of seeing the lights at the, at Baltimore Travel Plaza, just in, the green light and the white light, just in that. Right next to it is this flight path of a plane. I mean, how interesting is it if there's some sort of odd phenomena hiding in fireworks?
Oh.
And
yeah,
so,
I just, it was kind of an event that just always kind of like resonated with me, kind of like when you sit back there and you kind of marinate on memories from your youth, like way back when. It just, it always kind of sat there as kind of like an odd memory for me.
Lee, do you have any, put on your old ufological hat for a moment and dig into your old files. Do you have anything about UFOs or UAP hiding in flight paths, in fireworks, hiding in other lights that are going on at the same time?
I had a similar, not directly to answer your question, no, not right off the top of my head. However, I did have a similar incident occur with me as what happened with you at the Travel Plaza when I was living down in Roanoke, where
I didn't know about that.
Light just popped up out of nowhere, and it was there for a few seconds. I think I did mention it once or twice even before, that it was an orange light that just kind of popped in, and I got a feeling it was like, okay, just checking in, and then went away again. Maybe the entire incident took maybe 2 or 3 seconds, but it was outside. I was smoking a cigarette, and because I did not smoke in my apartment, and I was standing out on the back, and I had a hill that overlooked, the broad expanse of skyline, and just right up there, about 50 degrees off the horizon, just looking up, and it was like boink, boink, in and out. Flashing, that sort of thing, not. Of course, you hear of. There's been numerous reports of blue flashes or white blue flashes that are in different locales. That's not completely uncommon.
Yeah. Well, Steve, did your grandfather? Maybe you said this and it just went over my head, but did your grandfather think that there was anything to it? I mean, if you were 4 years old, that could have been mysterious to you, but not to him. Did he make anything of it? Is this something that he even talked about later in life?
Well, this is the thing too that I find kind of odd. Not that my grandfather he died when I was about in the 4th grade, so I didn't really get a chance to have a lot of adult conversations with him, if you know what I mean. So as I got older, I talked to my mom more about my grandpa and things like that, and got to learn more about him. And I come to find out, quite a few years back, but later on enough after he died, that he had a pretty big interest in, what you guys call and coin like the esoteric and things like that. He, I guess read books about UFOs and even questioned one of my relatives who was in the Air Force, like, hey, you know anything about this, blah, 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 and yeah, so he had a definite interest in things.
And so, okay, what was the next thing that you remember?
One of the things, still is kind of early on is when I was living at my grandparents'. There wasn't a lot of kids in the neighborhood because we did live on a dead-end street with, like, a cul-de-sac, and at the end of the cul-de-sac was a horse ranch. Our property line was up against cornfields. So, you know, I mean, like 5 or 6 kids in the neighborhood were all different ages, and we all played together. So one of the things we did is we would go and play in the woods at the top of the hill, and I was actually just talking with my mom about this weekend when I was at her house doing some laundry. I was like, you know, there was in the woods where we always played, there was a stone circle that we always played around, which I don't know, I just have an interest in, like, ancient human history and things like that, so I'm like, ooh, a stone circle, hey, wait a minute. It was kind of interesting because it was all made of, like, limestone, like smaller stones, but still big enough you couldn't really move, made up, like, the big outer rim of the circle, and right in the center was a really, really big stone, like, big enough you could climb on. And, yeah, it was a place where we would run around and play pretend. So some of my memories from back then, I wonder, are they just, you know, childish imagination and things like that? But, okay, so I'm going to tell you one of the craziest things I remember from when I was a kid that I've barely told anybody, but what the hell? Why not tell everyone now?
Yeah, why not tell the world? Sure.
Yeah, why not? You always say this, Jeremy. I mean, why not come on and just tell everybody? What the hell?
Yeah,
so
thanks.
There was... I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's a time delay with this thing. I'm sorry. I just said, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, all right. Well, so there was one day we were all playing up in the woods, and we were playing around the stone circle, and I don't even remember the names of the 2 kids that I was playing with, but there was a boy that was, like, around my age. He might have been a year younger. But then there was his sister, who I think was, like, 2 or 3 years older than me, and she was still younger at the time. I mean, this is when I was, like, around 4 years old or so. So, I mean, she would come out with, like, cracked out 6-year-old girl ideas for, like, hey, let's do this. Now let's, you know, play this game and this and that. And this particular day, she's, like, out of nowhere while we're sitting there throwing smaller rocks at the bigger rock and stuff and cracking open the smaller limestone rocks to look at all the quartz and the sparkles in them and stuff. She's like, you know what? We should make a wish by the rock. And I'm like, what do you mean make a wish by the rock? She's like, well, yeah, there's 3 of us. We get 3 wishes. Let's each make a wish and see if it comes true. I'm like, all right, whatever, you know, indulge her. And I don't even remember what the other 2, like, wished or were talking about, but I remember as a kid I was, like, totally obsessed with dinosaurs. So I was just like, well, I wish I could see a real live dinosaur. And, of course, we all sit there, wait, see if anything happens. Nothing happens. We go on with our day, do whatever, and, you know, we all leave the woods and things like that. And I think it might have been like a day or 2 later, I went to go see if the little boy wanted to play and stuff like that. And he wasn't home or something or another, and I remember going back to the woods. And when I was back in the woods, it was a real nice, warm, sunny day where you could see, like, the sunbeams hitting the leaves and stuff and the woods and whatnot. And I was sitting at the stone circle just kind of kicking leaves around, and I heard some rustling. You know, living out in the country, you see, like, deer and all sorts of other animals all the time. So I, you know, look up, start, like, kind of peeking through the trees, don't see nothing. And then I hear the rustling again, look up again, and I swear I saw, you know, a 2-legged, kind of like maybe 4 or 5 foot tall, like little raptor-ish looking dinosaur, but it wasn't colored like the ones in like the books I would read and stuff like that. It looked like one of those little green and old chameleons with like the white belly and like the super bright green skin. And I kind of freaked out, and I was like, really? No way. And I went to go run and see if, like, the little boy was home again, the one that I had been there with the other day. around. So I had him run back to the woods with me because we wanted to go find it again. And I was like, I swear I saw it, I swear I saw it. And I was like, all super excited, and I was swearing up and down that I had seen this thing. And we couldn't find it, kept looking around. All of a sudden we hear the rustling again, and we both look up and we see it. And it's pretty freaking close, like maybe 30 feet away from us. And that's when we both get really scared. Like, I remember looking at him and seeing, like, probably the same look that was on my face, just, like, complete terror. We were freaked the hell out. And we both kind of looked at each other again and instantly, without saying anything, tore ass out of that woods like you wouldn't believe, not even looking back. And quite frankly, I didn't even... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, did you notice anything? I mean, thinking back, did the place go deadly quiet, abnormal feeling of thickness in the air, anything along those lines?
No abnormal thickness in the air. Like I said, it was like a really bright, sunny day. I mean, there was tall tree cover, but it was really nice and sunny. I would say very quiet, though. The only real sound I picked up was from, I still feel goofy saying this, is from the freaking dinosaur that was right there, like the rustling. Like when we heard the rustling, we looked up and looked right at it, and yeah.
Your friend definitely saw this too, right?
I'm sorry, what was it?
I said your friend definitely saw this as well, right?
Oh, yeah, he definitely saw it because he was scared out of his nut just like I was. I mean, he looked at it, he looked at me, and like I said, we made the decision to run without even talking to each other. So he definitely saw it.
Did you ever talk to each other after that about it?
No. I mean, I wouldn't say we did because the parents of the boy and the little girl that I played with, they were, well, I heard the adults talk about them before, kind of as you're passing through the kitchen as a little kid, they don't think you hear what you hear, but you do, and they were kind of like the weird people up the block, so I didn't always get to play with those kids, and I only did live at my grandparents' for a couple years before me and my mom moved, so there wasn't too much talk about, like, that kind of stuff, like, afterwards. I mean, more so than the day it happened, but, I mean, how much do, 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds, like, shoot the shit about something that happened last week?
Sorry. Riot Fish in the chat room just wrote, clever girl, which is ridiculous, from Jurassic Park. Did this thing pay attention to you? Did it know that you were there?
See, that's the thing that freaked us out. It was looking right at us with that one eye. That is the one thing about that memory that just totally makes me still believe to myself that it was real after all these years, is like looking at that eye. That's why we ran. We knew it knew that we were there. And I'm like, everything I know about dinosaurs, even as a 4-year-old kid, screw this. I am out of here.
Before you saw this, how badly did you want to see it? I mean, I know that you made the wish, but then were you like really wishing for it, or was it just an off-the-cuff wish?
No, it wasn't an off-the-cuff thing. I had that real childlike, like, fully get into it, like, yes, I really want to see a dinosaur, because that was one of those things I obsessed over when I was a kid. Like, you watch the same movie over and over again. I was always looking at my dinosaur books, like, always looking at the same ones over and over and over again. Like, yeah, it was one of those things that I, like, would totally want to see, so...
See, to me, somebody, it might have even been Riot Fish, but somebody wrote in the chat a little bit ago, time slip, and I don't think it's a time slip. I think what we have here is an acute case of neck mice. if we remember me obsessed. Yeah, you remember? I don't know if you listened to the regular show.
Your neck out since then.
Yeah, I really, really, really obsessed over this thing, and then it formed in the room, and I felt it run across my head, jump. I opened my eyes and watched it dissolve into thin air as it was jumping, and you would swear that if someone else were in the room, they would have to have seen this thing simply because I felt it. You know, it wasn't just like a vision; it was the full Monty of it. And maybe what your experience answers is the great mystery. If you really wished something like that into existence, would someone else see it? Would it fall out on the floor? And it did.
There's a question in the chat room here. Did it have feathers?
No, it didn't have feathers. And see, that was the weird thing. Like I said, it didn't look like anything you would picture, like what an actual dinosaur would look like, except for its body shape. Like the color, like I said, looked like one of those little green anoles you could get for like $3 at like a pet store that had a white belly and like super bright green skin.
I remember when I was a little kid living in Raynham, Massachusetts. This must have been first grade. I had one of those, you know, those giant like tarantula, like just rubber spiders that kids have. They have like the yellow spots on their back, and they're just huge rubber tarantulas.
Did yours have the little elastic string in the middle of its back so you could kind of like bounce it up and down and whatnot?
It probably did at some point, and I probably bit it off or something. But anyway, I had this thing that I used to, I don't know, play with, I guess. I didn't have it this one day when I was outdoors walking around the house with my magnifying glass. And there, sitting on a panel of the house, was that spider. I mean, it was giant. It looked like a tarantula. It had the yellow spots on its back, or white spots, whatever they were. I think they were yellow. And it was huge, and I actually tapped it with the butt end of the or the handle end of the magnifying glass, and it zipped up into the wood paneling, like into some crevice, and I ran, and I ran inside, and I was like, and of course I don't think she believed me, but I saw that thing. I mean, and it was huge, and there's no way that there's a tarantula or anything looking like that in Raynham, Massachusetts. I mean, that just doesn't make sense. So shit like that happens, man.
See, and
I don't know what that is, but it's interesting.
You guys, I mean, before I called it and wanted, I can't believe it eventually led to that, but telling you guys that this is like, if you consider this phone call like one person, you're like one of 3 people I've told this story, and it just still trips me out I've actually told you guys this. I mean, shit like this happens. Are you kidding me?
Dude, did you hear the toilet elf story?
Yes, I heard the toilet elf story, and it was freaking great. That's what. Oh man. Well, here's. Do you mind me telling you another weird thing? This one it just popped in my head while you were telling me about your spider.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, when I was about, I'd say, 8 years old or so, me and my mom were visiting my aunt and my cousin, who was also 8 years old. And my mom and my aunt were watching movies, drinking wine in the living room. Me and my cousin were in my aunt's bedroom playing with toys, because she had this, like, giant strawberry toy chest that had all of her toys in it. And we were sitting there with it dumped over and playing and whatnot. And we went into the living room to pester the parents about something, pestered them, ran back into the bedroom, started playing with toys again. And I was talking to my cousin, and I noticed that there was a baseball in the middle of my aunt's bed, and she had, like, I think it was like a king-size bed. And I'm like, hey, Angie, why is the baseball sitting over there? And she's like, I don't know, I didn't put it over there. And as soon as I drew her attention to the baseball and asked that question, the baseball lifted from the middle of the bed and hit the ceiling, like, hard. Like someone went, bam, and then it fell down into the middle of the bed. We both looked at each other, immediately freaked out, and ran into the living room again. We're like, Mom, and Katie, go in there now. This is what happened, blah, 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 blah. We came in there. We pointed out the baseball, and they're like, yeah, you're crazy little kids. Whatever, go back to playing. And we're like, no, we don't want to be in here by ourselves. No. And they're like, no, go back to playing. And we're like, no. And we followed them back into the living room. And they're like, all right, well, fine. You can, sit here for a few minutes, but you got to be quiet. Well, of course, we're not going to be quiet. We start goofing around and, hitting each other with pillows from the couch and stuff. They're like, all right, fine, go back in the bedroom. And we're like, okay, whatever. So we go back into the bedroom. And we're talking as we're walking through the living room and going around the corner into the hallway, and we get to the doorway, and we look up, and we're like, what? There's a chest at the end of my Aunt Katie's bed, and that's where all of my cousin's stuffed animals were. We walk in there, and every one of the stuffed animals is sitting on top of the chest out and, set up in a scene you would set up your stuffed animals at the end of the bed. Yeah, we were done playing after that.
Maybe it was a multicolored guy.
When toys play back.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's a question about multicolored guy. Did he have a face?
No, it's really kind of weird. Here's a good example. Those little fluorescent colored sticky tab arrows you use for putting in notebooks and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Anyways, well, it's basically 3 stripes of a rainbow, 3 colors, purple, green, and blue. And it's just, they're all kind of, layered together as an outline, and you can see through it. And, if he was standing in front of a bookcase, you'd see the outline, but you could see through the outline. So there's no face, no details, just kind of an outline.
Okay. So it was like that.
Does that
Did
make
you?
sense?
Yeah. So it was basically the shape of a person, a bipedal person. I mean, it almost kind of sounds like a shadow person, except with color. No.
Okay.
I mean, just in terms of, whenever I hear something about shadow people, it's always sort of a nondescript shadow person, except that this is a rainbow person. Do you remember anything happening after that?
A shadow. Oh, I always thought of a shadow person as kind of like seeing the shadow of a person crawling across the floor up the wall, but not, flat and standing in the room type thing.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm not up on my shadow person stuff, but I mean, my visual has always been just sort of a shadow that could sort of come off the wall and walk around or something, almost like you're peeking into another dimension or something.
It's like a 3D shadow.
Yeah, but I don't know. But in any event, did you see anything after the age of 24 or have another experience?
Not with the outline of the person, but I had other experiences that were, unrelated to that after that age. I mean, I still have stuff that happens to this day, so.
Well, give us what is the latest?
The latest was Friday morning. I was having some very, very intense, lucid dreams, and usually when I wake up from those, I'm, panting heavily, covered in sweat, sheets are wet type thing where you can't really go back to sleep on them. You got to kind of brush them to the side. Reason I mention that is because this time when I woke up, I wasn't, warm. Everything was nice and cool in the room. Everything was, pretty nice and mellow. And I was really wide awake, not jolted awake, but just wide awake. And that's, kind of odd in itself just for me. But the funny thing was, as soon as I opened my eyes and kind of realized that scene, I heard a knock, just knock, knock. And it was not really fast, not really slow, but just, a real steady knock, knock. and it came from where my door should have been closed for my bedroom, but my door was open. Like, that's where the sound came from.
It was 2 knocks?
Yep.
Mm.
And I woke up like around, I don't know, I think it was like 3:02 or something like that. I think
someone
that
is
had
asking.
to do with what I was. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, someone is asking in the message room if Outline Man was a real hard outline or a soft outline.
Hard.
Well, you're saying he was a real man.
words,
He wasn't an outline. He was standing in the room. He wasn't like a 2D object in the room. He was 3D, right?
I think he means hard in the sense that it had sharply defined.
Like, walking through the room like a person would be. I would say the colors were very dark where I couldn't see through the colors. I don't know if they're asking if the colors were more opaque or not, or...
I think the question
is
if it had... I think the question is if it had like a sharply defined outline to it, or if it was kind of fuzzy, had fuzzy edges to it.
No, it was a very sharply defined outline.
Okay.
And the colors didn't bleed together either. The colors were very defined, but yet they were right next to each other.
Interesting. Well, if it ever talks to you, call us back.
Okay. Any questions you want me to ask it? Because I don't know what I'm going to ask it. Like, hey, who are you?
Yeah. I mean, just the basic. I mean, does it even have a mouth to speak? Who knows?
No, I see no mouth.
You're just going to get some answer. What are you? You're just going to get some answer. It's going to point to the sky, or it's going to, what do you want me to be? What are you? Something like that. But anyway, Steve, thank you so much for calling in and sharing this stuff with us. With Lee.
Us, yes, everyone.
Yeah,
no problem.
You.
Hey, and thanks for listening to me babble on for a little bit, man. I mean, I'm glad I could fill some time for you. And you know what? I got to say to both of you, and I so wish Jeff was on the air, because then I could tell you guys, thank you for doing what you do. I know it sounds kind of like a broken record, thank you, but it is really cool, and I totally enjoy it. And you guys, oh my God, you get me through work. And Jeremy, personal message from me to you. I'm so sorry I missed you in Exeter. I wanted to come for the Good Parade get together. I love that show so much. Please do more of it, please.
Okay, we will.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
I've embarrassed myself enough. You guys have a great night.
You too.
Right.
Take care.
Thank you. You too.
I don't think he should be embarrassed. I mean,
not at all. Not at all.
I mean those are some fascinating details, and I love it when people say nice things to me. So win-win. Anyway, Lee, we have another call.
Awesome.
If the call button actually works. If it's not working, does that mean that I'm going to go off the air real soon? People are going to be like, what just happened?
There he is. Hello?
Hello?
Caller. Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
Stop. You are on.
Hi.
Lee, stop saying hello. We got past that. Caller, you're on the air. Hey, what's up? Who's this?
Hi, it's Hermitage. How you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm good. I just wanted to call again to thank you for having me on a while back, and I'm sorry for my nervousness that I'd been. I almost wish Mando Steve or James Earl Jones could have done my narrative for me. That would have made it a little more entertaining.
No, you were great. I don't know why you're apologizing. I thought you were fantastic, and thanks for doing it. Now, Dino Raptor is giving Toilet Elf a run for his money, I think.
I know. I was thinking who would win in a fight, Catworm or or the Toilet Elf or Raptor or Raptor Boy or whatever. It's pretty amazing. That was an amazing story. I got to hear part of it on the. What I was calling about. I had been doing a little. I remember when Jeff had been to Gulf Breeze a while back, and he had talked about this weird feeling, sensation of dropping, like him and I guess a couple of the people who had been there at the conference or whatever back a long time ago. He said he had this weird sensation of feeling like dropping. So I was trying to do some research on that, and on Wikipedia I found something called hypnic jerk, excuse me. I guess a hypno jerk is someone who is a
yes, David Jacobs.
research, yes, exactly. But what it is, I know, bad. But it's a form of non-REM state that occurs during sleep. And is that, I know we all have that sensation when you're laying in bed and all of a sudden you feel like you're falling, you get like this weird dropping sensation. But they said it can occur in a awake state. And I'm not saying that's what he had experienced, but I'm just wondering if that could have been something that stimulated that part of the brain that caused a similar sensation to that. Possibly, could that have anything to do with the experiencing of the other, phenomenon itself? And I'm sorry Jeff isn't here to answer that question. I guess that's not a really fair question to ask either of you, but
well, it's an interesting one.
What you guys might think of that?
I mean, here's my question back about that, because somebody, and it might have even been Allie, Jeff and I have talked about like white flashes and things like this behind the eyelids. That
head explosion thing?
Not head explosion. There's something else. There's something else that you can wiki, and it comes up as something that people experience. So my question is, something like that, or something like the hypno jerk, or whatever it's called.
Hypnic jerk, I think.
Are these things that have a real answer, or are they just a label to put on a phenomena that we don't understand? I mean, do they know what that means, or do they just say, yep, this happens, it's called hypno jerk?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you go by the references, they say it's been, studied by different groups for sleep disorder and that kind of thing. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. But I was just wondering if, again, I'm not saying that's what it was, but or is, but I'm just wondering that, I know I've had that experience where you're like in sleeping and then you have that weird dropping sensation. I'm just wondering if, again, not that it's, it may be partially related to that, or that could be a byproduct of whatever, the other is, and I'm just, again, it's all speculation, and I was just...
Yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting, too, is, here we have a phenomenon that comes out at night, and when a whole town is seeing it during the day, are they lulled into a sleep state in some way? Maybe the next time, if there is a next time, of a whole town being on alert like that, somebody should go in and do... brain exploration and just hook up an EEG to random people and see if their brain patterns are normal or reflective of some sort of sleep state. That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. Very much so. But anyway, that's about all I got. Let me see if I'm just scanning my notes here.
Toilet elf, too? Electric Boogaloo?
Yeah, right. No, nothing like that. Ghost dog. I guess like Auburn, I've been experiencing some. It happened. I guess. Well, we had to put our dog down in July, and for like a month after that, we heard him on the stairs, and he had bad arthritis in his back legs, and he had a very distinct gait, and we'd always hear him. Once in a while we would hear. And we have 3 other dogs, but they were all accounted for, and we could hear him coming down the stairs or going up the stairs. It then lasted probably for about a month, and then it just sort of dissipated. And again, I don't know if that's just like a holdover or leftover from when he was here, but it was just interesting. to say the least.
What do you think about the idea? Could we even put that in the context of neck mouse and dinosaur, where it's you're obsessing over the loss of your dog, and then you start manifesting the dog until you sort of emotionally come off of it, and then it dissipates with your, the emotional stranglehold that the loss has on you. You think that's fair to say?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to say I've had a similar experience with a cat, a ghost cat, if you will. The place I was living prior to where I've just moved to, in the bed, you could be lying in the bed and you would feel a cat jump up on the bed and make those real little tentative, real soft, gentle impressions in the bed, and then it would go and settle down. And then you'd look and there'd be nothing there. But I had no attachment to that animal whatsoever. I mean, there was a cat in the apartment, but the cat was not allowed in the bedroom. And in fact, at first I thought it was, the cat had gotten in somehow, but the cat was out in the living room. It wasn't in the bedroom at all. The bedroom door was closed, and it was, and I felt it on several occasions that there was a cat that would crawl into bed with us and curl up with us.
Wow.
And there was no cat there, so that would kind of take a little of the emotional attachment manifestation out of the mix in that particular occasion.
Yeah.
Bad Pancake says, Lee, I have that too, ghost cat.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Apparently there's a lot of ghost cats going around.
Right.
But actually, it's funny because I've always said we always see these ghosts of our pets and stuff like that, but where are the dinosaurs? But I guess finally tonight I got my answer. Some people do see ghost dinosaurs.
Yeah, that was pretty. That was wild.
Yeah, the wild thing is that I believe him. There's no part of me that's like, oh, that guy's pulling a rib here,
No, he sounded quite sincere. But gee, well, anyway, I'll let you guys get going, and again, thanks for taking my call, and I'll see you around.
All right, thank you, and thanks for doing the show once again.
Oh, you're very welcome. Have a good night, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
See what fun we have when brave people call in and say brave things.
Isn't it wonderful? There's nothing to fear.
That's right.
But
Lee himself.
We're all normal here.
That's right. Yeah. I love it when I said, yeah, that happens. And he's like, that happens? What do you mean that happens? If anyone else wants to call in, 323-580-5757. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Ghost cats hunt neck mice.
Yes. Easy for you to say.
Right.
I don't remember off the top of my head if Jeff's feeling displacement or feeling like he was moving up and down was a bodily displacement, like there's some piece of him inside of his body moving up and down, which is something that I experience pretty much all the time, or if he actually felt as though his physical body was moving down into the sidewalk and back up. Do you remember? Or is it like the sidewalk gives way, like an earthquake kind of thing? There's some bend to it.
No, I don't know. I don't recall. I know I've experienced that sort of thing as well. The hypnic jerk is the result of trying to catch yourself. And I've heard in the past that was kind of a like an instinctive thing that devolved back to when we were living in trees, that if you felt yourself falling out of a tree or sleeping in a tree, that you would instinctively jerk to catch yourself. And that was the explanation they gave us when I was in school. In fact, I remember we talked about that one day in school, and that's what our sagacious teacher told us.
I'm sorry, what was that word again?
Sagacious.
Wow,
Full
what
of
does that
sage.
mean?
full of
beyond
sage.
my pay grade.
Spicy. It's herbal.
I see. Allie is asking the whoop feeling. Yes, that is what we're talking about with the feeling of displacement in your body going, up and down. It's like you know that there's something else there that's not your body and it's moving. It's weird. Well, thanks for the calls, y'all. Now we're on our own, which is always a horror.
What's that number again, Jer?
Oh, that number again is 323-580-5757. I guess I could just keep giving spoilers to next week's show, but I don't want to do that. You're right. What I should have done is looked more into fog and deer stuff. But what's funny about that episode is that it's like at the same time that I thought, oh, this is creepy, and I think I even sort of advertised it as a creepy story, I'm thinking there's really, the more I think about it, there's nothing creepy about it. I mean, it is and it isn't. Like, again, I just feel like, man, if I were to ask Tiokasin about that experience, would he have a completely non-creepy answer to it because he knows what he's talking about and I don't? Is it that simple?
You may want to make a note of that, jot that down to actually bring that up to him and discuss that with him, because I'm sure he will have a particular take on it. I'll bet you.
Yeah. I wonder why something like that would happen to a person anyway. Like, what is so important about those two guys going down that road? I mean, is there any importance? Because I guess maybe part of the creepiness of it is even the feeling that there was something not fulfilled there. Like he had said, if I had just gone down that road, that sort of thing, this would have been a different experience. If you get out of the car, it's a completely... I mean, it's almost like the thing that's like creepy about it is all the options that didn't happen, because really what you did was you turned around, you got out of there, and then the experience was over, which is just fine. Right. That's like the least creepy thing that could happen. And so the creepy comes with the unknown, not necessarily just the fact that these deer are staring at you in this fog. But I wonder, is there something important and specific to these two gentlemen that, or could they have just been anybody, I mean, do you get the sense that with every experience it is specific to the person, or do you think that some of these are random?
It's hard to say for certain, of course, but I don't really think that it's random. I think it seems like it's random at the time, but I think there's some sort of manifestation of something going on. And once again, whether it's internal or external, it's perceived in a certain way by whoever is perceiving it. In my case, in my fog bank, I've had little flashes of memory. I don't know if there was any kind of missing time. I don't know if I stopped the car or anything like that. I didn't think to check the clock. I didn't do a time check when the bird first flew up in front of my window when I entered the fog bank, and a time check when I exited it. It seemed at the time seamless, but then again, you always have these little snippets of flashes of recollections of things that perhaps more time was spent in there. That begs the question then, how much of that is fantasy that is raised out of just a weird occurrence? Is it random? No, I think it was something, if it was generated internally by me, then that, kind of eliminates the randomness of it. If it was generated externally, it must be happening to everybody because it's happened. I've had weird shit happen to me my entire life. So if it is random, there's the laws of chance would say that it would be random for everyone.
Allie is asking, could it have been a screen memory, whatever that is? And we talked about that on the show. I don't think it's a screen memory for Mando Steve because he remembers the full 2 hours of going around in circles, driving around in circles. But here's a larger question about screen memories. are they real, or are they a concoction of hypnotherapy and the will of Bud Hopkins, David Jacobs, and whoever else, that crowd, to say that everything is a little evil alien? And so I was just talking with someone about this today, that was how they formed their belief system, partially, was by saying, oh, you thought you had a Marian vision when you were a kid? You didn't. It was aliens. And therefore everything becomes a screen memory for aliens.
Right.
So I think that there can be a cultural overlay maybe of like, oh, is that an owl? Is that deer? Maybe that sort of thing initially is confusing. But I would think that you would snap out of it and see what's there. I don't know. But do you think that screen memories are real, or do you think that they're... I mean, this is probably an unfair question to ask because neither of us have really put any thought into it, probably. But do you think that they are a concoction of hypnosis?
I think they're an interpretation of whatever set of data that we're presented with at any given moment, and we make our minds automatically. That's what they do. They make associations with known, known structures, if you will. And that's what we construct, and that's why we've gotten reports, of 66 Ford station wagons flying through the sky, because that's what people, even though it as nonsensical as it may be, this is what the data set that we're interpreting. That's how we interpret it at the time. As to whether the overlay is artificially created with us, I would hold that to be very highly suspect. I think it's just a more or less a construction of our own minds in trying to make sense, even nonsensical sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I think it's a confusing topic now because on the one hand you've got things that are, like you'd say, cultural overlay or change blindness. I mean, I think those things definitely, like seeing the upside down Enterprise or the truck in the air or any of that sort of thing that Jeff has talked about, I would say they weren't really seeing those things. But on the other hand, we certainly know from these Jacobs tapes that he just sits there and while you're under hypnosis, he just tells you what happened in other hypnosis sessions and what you should be expecting from your own experience about to come out of your mouth. So if you've, say, had a Marian vision, if you had a Marian vision or something like that, and you go to see David Jacobs, it's going to end up being evil aliens because that's what he wants you to say. So how do you parse those two things out? I don't know that we really can, except to note that they both exist.
Yeah, which is, again, another argument for or against the use of hypnotherapy as a diagnostic tool, no matter what the skill set is of the particular person who is administering that, and whether they have any kind of agenda, spoken agenda or unspoken agenda to formulate the conclusions before they've even gone through the process. There's still some kind of suggestibility that is bound to find its way in there. That's why you always put more validity and just naturally give a little more credence to naturally and spontaneously remembered events, because they themselves might already have their own overlay without the bias of a hypnotherapist.
Vale is saying, why do certain people have screen memories and some don't? What's the criteria? And I don't know. I mean, again, this is probably beyond our pay grade too, but maybe one way to look at it, or maybe this is helpful, is to say that somebody who sees something, I mean, generally when you say a screen memory, what we mean is it's screening the beginning of like missing time or something, like you see a deer in a window and that's really an alien, and now you're going to have this long drawn out alien abduction episode under hypnosis.
Well, ostensibly, it's a protective mechanism to keep us from recognizing the horror of what we're going through.
Right. So that would be what a screen memory is. So is that different than seeing what might be a quote-unquote spaceship or a light in the sky or something and interpreting that as some sort of cultural overlay? an upside-down Enterprise or a Mack truck. I mean, are those two things differently? Because that doesn't then lead into an abduction scenario, I think it's problematic to say that there is a screen memory of something that then leads to an abduction, because the thing that fleshes out that abduction necessarily is hypnosis, or else you would remember what happened next, naturally. And so if you go to a hypnotist who knows exactly what happened next before you ever got there, then naturally that's what they're going to pull out of you. And so the story can't be trusted. So I think there are at least those two different things,
Yeah.
And Vale had asked before for maybe if I could mention a tale out of Hawaii or something, and I thought, I don't actually have any that I haven't spoken about, but I do. There is one little anecdote, but it's actually from a couple who vacation here often, who live in Canada. They live on I don't remember where, but a little island in Canada. And they said, I told them, that I do this show, and they said that they have these power lines out, in a road near their house. And one fine day, they were driving by, and and the power lines were waving, like frantically waving up and down in the air. And there was electricity, like bolts of it going up into nothingness. They said it was as if there were some sort of invisible thing hovering above the power lines, draining energy. And they said it was hugely bright, and they thought it was a fire. They thought at first something had crash landed, and then, like a plane or maybe a meteor or something. And then they thought there was a fire, and they'd called the fire department, they called the electric company and all this, and they came and checked it out, and there was nothing. There was not even a surge noted on record or anything like that. And they thought that was very strange.
Have you seen the film of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge?
No, I don't know. I wouldn't know it by name.
The rubber bridge that like starts bending and twisting wildly and just it goes into because of the wind that goes into a certain resonance because of the length of the cabling and the length of the bridge, and it ultimately caused the bridge to fail. It could be something as sinister as that just is there a lot of wind in that area?
I don't know. It's Canada. They say a boot.
Yeah. A boot, yeah. So that means it must be windy.
Yes, every time they say it.
But no, I mean that conceivably could be what it is. That the specific length of that cable run might be resonating where it would cause it to flail up and down. Maybe it could even be related to the frequency of the alternating current that's being carried over the wires too. That it might be creating some kind of oddball resonance, and I don't know. You might get some arcing because of that. I know I've walked underneath power lines before and had, when I was back in the day, before I knew any better, when I would hunt, I would walk under power lines with I would have the barrel of the shotgun resting against, my neck, as carrying it kind of military style, and I would feel electric shocks, induced electric shocks from the metal in the barrel. On my neck, slight. They weren't severe, but the electromagnetic fields that surround those wires go a lot further a whole lot further than you think they do.
How would you say that those shocks compare to the nipple clamps?
Not quite as pleasurable. What?
I knew you'd fall for that. They're still asking me what island in Canada. I don't know. A small island. Just make one up. It's Canada. I don't have to know anything. Actually, I had a Canadian couple come into the store I work at and berate American currency because it's confusing to them and it's made out of paper and they have these mighty coins. And I thought that was silly because who the hell wants to carry around heavy coins all day?
Yeah. Unless
You're
they're
welcome.
made of
You're welcome
aluminum.
for the riveting conversation starter.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, what else we got? We've got a few minutes left here. We could call it early, or we could call it late for dinner. How the rest of that goes.
I have a train going by right now.
Do you? Nice.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear it on the microphone.
No.
It sounds really close.
Will you be? That also is a riveting conversation starter. Will you be joining us next week as well?
Yeah, I believe so. Hopefully, Jeff will have his power back on by then.
Cool.
And if we're not entirely underwater by then.
Yeah, well,
I live at an elevation probably about 2 feet above sea level right now.
I just saw this son of a bitch click into Skype. Don't even tell me Jeff Ritzmann is going to come on the air with 10 minutes left to go.
And he's going to stump us. Here we go.
Son of a bitch. Ritzmann.
So I guess right. I guess the check cleared then, huh?
Pay your cable bill, boy. By the way, I'd like to say I would like to compliment myself, pat myself on the back, as I'm prone to do, for all of the sort of deer and girl humping talk that we did and took seriously on this week's show. Not once did I make a joke. You're welcome, everybody.
That was incredibly tasteful of you.
Yes, well, I figure it gets old after
a
while.
It went all the way up until the nipple clamps
I don't like being typecast is the thing.
I got you. So where's the Jeff?
I don't know. Jeff, we just saw you come online. Don't pretend. He's probably dialing in. He's probably screwing it up. That's how I imagine he does things. Where's the number key? I picture him really old.
Where's the any key?
All right. Well, if Jeff isn't calling in, then we'll call it a night. Does anyone else out there in internet land have anything that they want to talk about in the last couple of minutes here, or no? And I'll just wait. I'll just wait for that. I'll just have dead air while you guys answer that. Jeremy, did you hear this week's Streamland? Did I hear this week's Streamland? No. I haven't listened to Dreamland in a really long time, and then I listened to the one with the director of I Am, because I really wanted to have him on the show, but I can't find any damned contact information for him. So that was the last one I listened to. Why? Anything? I'm just going to talk to a message board, because that's riveting radio.
You can read it. You can read it back, too.
It's true. And now people are talking about dolphins. I love how non sequitur-ish it is on the chat board. Missing persons thing was this week on Dreamland. People dragged off from national parks. Yeah, okay. No, I didn't see that one. Do I need to? I guess I do if they're mentioning it.
Yeah. Maybe
that's what I'll do, Lee. Maybe I'll go listen to that.
Go listen to the Dreamland.
Dream away. All right. Well, Paratopia, we're going to call it. We've only got a few minutes left anyway. Lee, what have you got coming up in your life? Anything we need to promote?
Actually, no, not at the moment. As I said, I've been away for a long time, and it's nice to not be in a hotel anymore, and nice to be in my own home. And I'm going to enjoy this for the next several weeks. And yeah, I do plan on being back next week as well. And I was thinking of going to the Dreamland Festival this year, but it's just neither in the budget nor in the cards. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Whitley wasn't going to do it again because he not having a good time with it last year?
He had a bit of a rough time with it because there were some snafus with the like the dinner arrangements and things like that, and a lot of people complained, and that kind of negative energy is not what people were looking for. So it kind of put him off a bit, and he's gone ahead and agreed to do it again this year. But I think they're having it earlier this year. I think last year it was in June. I believe it's in May this year.
Oh, good. I did see one thing Jeff and I have talked about. This is kind of mean because I know that everybody needs to advertise something, even when you've got nothing. Even when your show's about nothing, you've got to say something about it. But this week's Dreamland, I think it is this woman who's got she's an abductee, I guess, and she has a radio show of her own. And the way they're advertising it is like, wow, she's using her real name. Is this a sign that it's time for experiencers to start coming out and using their real name? Is it time for us to empower ourselves? And it's like, what do you think we've been doing?
Yeah, right.
What do you think Culture of Contact was all about? It's like,
this is not.
This has been going on for years. This isn't new.
Hello.
Jeff.
Jeff Ritzmann, where'd you come from?
I just kind of slid in the back door because you weren't answering my call.
I don't even see your call on there.
Yeah, I'm right there. I'm there.
Oh, maybe I have to refresh or something.
Man, it's hot.
Sorry. How are you? How goes the storm?
It's fine. Yeah, the power came back on, so I called in. Hi, everybody.
Welcome back.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. So ridiculous.
I'm playing you out. Gotta think outside the box. Paratopia.
Indeed.
It's Jeremy. It's Jeff. It's Lee.
Hey.
Oh wait.
Mark 2.
The show's over.
No, wait, the show's over. It's Mark 2.
I don't know. Jeff, are you still there? Is Jeff still there? Did Jeff leave? Hello, Jeff. Now he's ringing me on Skype.
I don't know.
Never mind. I guess we'll have to do the after chat some other day.
Oh, well.
I'm hanging up. Good night, everybody.
Good night.